So fire away, my friend.
All right.
What's on order tonight?
Well, I kind of thought maybe tonight we would maybe just go through some like real world examples of maybe where you've had situations and as much detail as you want to give, but just situations that have actually happened to you where it was tempting to kind of pick up
Yeah.
again, and then
Oh, okay.
what you
Okay.
did that got you through that moment, or if you
Mhm.
remember what specifically you did. Like, did you go to a meeting? Did you eat a cake? Did you go for a
Mhm.
run? Like whatever it was that kind of like
Well,
what gets you through some of
I'm
those
not gonna
moments.
lie to you. There have been cakes that have been eaten,
Oh, I
like
imagine. I
for
imagine.
sure, man.
But just because I think a lot of people like, sometimes I feel like nobody knows what I mean, but it's like no, when you hear other people's that actually go through pretty similar things,
Mhm.
kind of relate better. And I just kind of thought maybe that would, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Anybody listening or watching?
Dude? I think it's a good idea. Do you have anything to start us off with? I
Oh,
think
look at that, eh?
I think people are interested in what you might have to say, as well as, I mean, they might be interested in me as well, but I think,
Well, for me, I think like because the way I envision it is, it's going to be something that's going to either cause at some level some stress on you.
Mhm.
So for me, I look at like stressful situations I've been in, and the way I deal with things, and maybe sometimes in the moment not so well, but I like times that I actually have dealt with things where I thought, oh shit, I didn't just freak out or something. Um, it's just realizing, like, just finding a way to like take a pause and even just mentally step back and just like, if somebody's yelling at you or doing something, like just let them do their thing and just kind of like hum a tune in your head, and but you
Mhm.
just kind of distance yourself from the behavior or whatever the situation that's going on.
Yeah,
And then but I think that really comes down to meditation. I do a lot of that, so it's like
it's
you,
part of your practice.
yeah, you get used to kind of just taking those midday pauses where you're just like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to sit here and focus on a breath for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and you can literally just stand in a line and just meditate breathing for like 30 seconds or a minute. And I think that's where that comes from. So I don't know,
Mhm.
that's something that I do. I know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's very helpful. I mean, I kind of incorporate similar things into when shit gets real, right?
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, through the first 17 years and a bit of being sober, um, I guess, man, the most emotionally unstable I've been has been in respects to probably interpersonal relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and work too. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was a few years in my middle sobriety where they were not super easy years for me. Like there
Mm-hmm.
were adjustment years, right? And I'm thinking probably like 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 even, because they were hard years because I
Yeah.
was something was forming, right?
Right.
And in order for things to form, especially for things to harden, a person has to go through stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's, I mean, I'll get into specifics for sure, but like the idea is that as time goes by and we're exposed to more and more of life in the raw, so to speak, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
where you have to just kind of, it hits you on the face sometimes, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, and see, being sober, um, early sobriety, I wasn't really sure I liked that. Right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to pick up a drink, but I'm not sure I like getting smacked around.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, but it's because I've never really felt a smack around.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I've always coped with whenever something was smacking me around, I was using alcohol to cope, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I was trying to use alcohol to cope.
Yeah.
And I remember specific incidences growing up where, I mean, legit, I was purposely hiding drinking to avoid consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I can remember just hunkering down and being like, okay, if you just hide here for a few days, shit's going to go by.
Oh wow.
Right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people will forget because I was just so terrified of what I was doing when I was drinking and blacking
Yeah.
out. And um, and hearing some of those stories, of course, it doesn't help you feel any better about it when you don't remember.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but what I guess when I did get sober and I started to learn how to actually change like challenges into opportunities kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I really do think that's one of the great benefits that I've gotten anyway.
Yeah.
That I can feel like a tangible benefit is being able to see an arch through the years of just being able to handle things better and not have to try and wiggle my way out of things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, and obviously a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm not causing a lot of shit,
Yeah.
right? Like
Well, you're kind
my
of building a new history, right? So it's like when,
mhm,
especially, and I mean, especially when it's like new, you're
it's
really
a good
new
way.
building it, and you don't
Yeah.
have that long history of like. So I think it, like, yeah, I think you're right. As time goes on and you experience more and more and more and more, a lot of things become a lot less impactful because you're like, oh well, I've dealt with that before, so I can deal with
Mhm.
that again.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I mean, so I can see that for sure. Like as time goes on, you do build up like a new history. Like
Mhm.
every time you're kind of challenged and you don't pick up and you make it through that, it's kind of like, hey, that's one more now in the win column kind of thing, if you want to look at
Mhm.
it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so. But I was just thinking, like, because I was thinking about it during the week. Like, it's really easy because I don't know if I had a conversation with somebody, or I don't know what it was that triggered this thought in my head, but it was just the idea that I like, oh well, if you're having trouble, just go to me, And I thought, well, that's good. That is good advice, but like, especially in COVID times and whatever, like that's not necessarily an option now. So like, what else can someone do that's like that is alternatives? And
Yeah.
then but people, I tend to find that when you have that conversation, people are just like, oh, well, I'll just do that or go do this. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, but that's easy to say. Oh, just reach out. But you know
Yeah.
how hard it is to reach out. So it's like,
Mhm.
what are some, like, that's kind of why I was like, well, I just want, I'm curious, like, what are some, I don't know
Well,
if it was
that's
a way you had to get your brain in the thought, or like you just
mhm.
go for a coffee. I don't know what it was that like got you that moment of time to get past that moment. You know what I
Uh,
mean?
for sure, man. A combination of things, but I mean, the first thing I had to do was get out of my own way. So, like, and this is honestly when I see people who are able to stay sober and who actually start to live lives that they really enjoy,
Mhm.
um, and whatever that looks like for each of us is different, but those people seem to possess the ability to do these things despite themselves, right? Like
Mhm.
despite the fact that I don't want to do it, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to, I don't want to feel pain,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is that I have to feel pain and I will feel pain. So trying to avoid it all those like the first half of my life,
Yeah.
like a good portion of the first half of my life. Oh, I'm just assuming I'm only going to live to be 50 because I'm talking. No, I'm just kidding. Um, well, it would be 60, I guess. But the first half of my life
Yeah.
was challenging, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so learning a new life is equally challenging,
Yeah.
but it's just not challenging in the same way. I'm not fighting the physical pangs of drinking, right?
Mhm.
Like the hangovers. The now what we have to fight is our desire to quit. Like I have to fight my desire to give in and just seek pleasure all the time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the reality is, if I just continue to seek pleasure and avoid pain, as the great Dominic Mayhew once said, like when he gave me my card and he said, all I can think of is Dave really likes to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And something like that. I'm
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
at quoting, but that's something like what he said. And everybody in the meeting was kind of like blank face, but I was like, yeah, that's me for sure. And I mean, he's watched me and
Yeah.
I lived that life like
Yeah.
very specifically before I sobered up. It was,
Yeah.
and I could deny it and pretend like it was something epic, but it wasn't. It was simply a dude um, trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure.
Yeah.
Like at my base, that was what I wanted. And
Well, yeah, and ultimately, that's, I think, kind of what we all want. Like, none of
yeah,
us want pain. what the
Well, no,
hell,
for
man?
sure, right?
Like, we just want pleasure, like good
And
times. Let's
most of us
roll.
do. Most of
Yeah.
us do want that. But I think the idea is if we want a different kind of life than what everybody else has, we have to do different things, right?
Yeah.
And that goes along with the seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty simple, right? If I can
Yeah.
just simply face my pain, accept that it's going to hurt, and things do hurt for sure. Um, I still like I feel hurt still, and
Well, for sure. Yeah.
I might feel hurt for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like hurt to the point where, yeah, like the whatever might be next in life in that respects is so a distant, far off, like improbability.
Yeah.
um, because I don't want to rush through this, you know,
Yeah.
because it was a big deal to me, right? Like it is a big deal to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and especially as something so important, right? Like with whether it be a like the job you love or a person you love or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And each of us has different things that we're after in different times in our lives, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
but I don't know, man. I think the one thing I was, just to get back to what you were asking me before about, and when I said I just have to get out of my way, like I
Yes.
think I want to kind of keep tying it back to that, because no
Yeah.
matter what comes up, if I can get out of my way and first of all ask for help somehow, and that's just like, it could be as simple as calling a buddy or a friend and just saying, hey, I need to talk to somebody, like I
Yeah.
need to talk to you, like about something.
Yeah.
And then from there you can grow the support, right? Like
Totally.
the buddy can say, um, okay, look, you know what, that's out of my element, but I can help you find someone to talk to,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't have to just like shut it down just
Mhm.
because we might be overwhelmed by what's being given to us. On the flip side, obviously we want to be careful who we tell our stuff to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And who we trust. So if we have trustworthy friends, which lots of people do, I think they have people they can trust to talk to. Um, that's a makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
So
For sure.
like if you're involved in like a fellowship of some kind, whether it be a 12 step or another kind of fellowship,
Yeah.
it really makes no difference, because if you have support of like-minded individuals, like you're going to be okay.
Well, that's
You're
just
more
it, right?
likely to be okay, more likely, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because again, I always find the stereotypes with all this so funny because like when people look at others in recovery with those like the judgmental lenses, it's like, oh, you need that peer support so you don't go back to drinking or whatever.
Mhm.
But it's like, yeah, but that's actually what we all need for everything.
Mhm.
I mean, why do we have families? Because we're a social animal.
Mhm.
And so we want to feel included in that family. We want to, that's why people have big families or whatever, but that's why you have friends. That's why. So we all have to have that peer support in every issue, like in everything in our lives, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, even look at work. A lot of times things are done by committee or meetings, and you have to have
Yep.
other people involved. So it's like just trying to just trying to peg people like with those stereotypes. I think, I don't know. It just,
Mhm.
what you were talking about just triggered that, was like, it really is about just that peer community.
Well, that's
It's important,
important.
but that applies to like
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yep. I agree, man. It's like if you have whatever your friends are, whatever your if you belong to groups or organizations or whatever, within those organizations, there's usually some element of like mentorship, right? And like,
Yeah.
and however they describe that kind of relationship in the organization is totally up to them, right? Depends on
Hmm.
whatever message they're trying to send, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if we have these like even within banks, within large law firms, whatever it is, right, to have an element of that firm or that company that is dedicated to listening to their employees, right? Like
Yeah.
that's all it takes.
Yep.
Honestly, I think you'll have that, and 4-day work weeks like would probably change. Well, I know that
Yeah.
it's changing my life, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing 4-day work weeks, like where I have a flex day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the fifth day will be only if there's stuff that absolutely needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to hope for that for anyone who comes to work for us in the future, right? Like
Oh
would be
yeah,
the same. Because I really do want to get healthy, right? And
exactly.
the only way to do that, that's another thing, to answer the question, I guess, is changing things that I can change, right? Like,
Hmm.
so often we'll get this powerless feeling when we can't change so much of our life, right? Because some things, if we're honest, there's a good portion of our life that's beyond our control, right? Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, and once that comes into focus, that can be really debilitating. At least to me, it can be,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like once I start to see how wrong things could go, like
Well, and that you're almost helpless to do it into
a
like
hundred
it's
hundred
like
percent.
you know.
Then that's right. And then you got to focus on what you can do,
Yes.
right? Like, and so that's one of the techniques I use that was taught to me by many people, right? Like, was
Hmm.
to first of all be where you are, like
Yep.
slow everything down and be where you are. Um, all the other stuff in the future will take care of itself. All the stuff in the past is over. And it's basically like you get into a meditative state, whatever works for you,
Yeah.
right? Like when you start to feel the blood boil and like
Yeah.
things just start to move so fast, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
um, just trying to keep slow, I guess, in times of panic.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. And
Yeah.
today, like today's day and age, man, there's a lot of panic out there,
Oh yeah.
right? Like, and I'm guilty of it too, man. Like, I'm guilty of just having the wrong attitude, right?
Hmm.
Like, the difference is today, I don't mind so much that when I catch it, I can just try to change it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to ride that jackass donkey all the way out to the middle of the field, right? And until I totally wear it out, I can actually just like say, hey, you know what, donkey, get the fuck out of here. You can, I'll walk. Thank you very much. Right. And again, just slow down.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've noticed a huge change in like my overall happiness, overall. I don't know if I would say health, but I think that's the best word you could use to describe it. But just mental health, even the way I deal with stress is so much easier now that I'm in a situation now where I have much less work stress.
Mm.
And like you said, I go to work and they actually listen to people there, not just me, but like
Mm.
I watch them listen to other staff members and their suggestions or their ideas, and like it just it just reduces that anxiety. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I think we need that, like in general.
I
Um,
agree.
and I think that's the thing is you can once you kind of are able to, I guess, take that moment, take that time, like you said, take 4-day work weeks instead. It'll give you a little bit extra time to kind of focus on maybe how you deal with things. How
Just
maybe
to
now
do,
you have the time to meditate,
yeah,
even
yeah,
once a
man.
week. You know what I mean? Like,
It
and that's
allows
what I think
you.
it would do for people.
Yeah, man. I agree. I think it gives you an extra day to breathe, right?
Yeah, I mean, or if you're not into that, if you're more active and want more action, like if you're a mountain biker, well, now you have a couple extra days. Like maybe you have 2 days to mountain biking
Mhm.
instead of just one on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, so you can just
Precisely.
kind of get that little more of whatever it is that gets you not doing negative behaviors in your life.
And recharge for the next week of work or whatever, right? Like
Absolutely, yeah,
you have enough time to recharge. You don't spend you don't have to spend like your whole time off doing errands because you might be able to get them done in one day. Like you said, go for a 2 day get away for 2 days, right? Or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think not everybody can make it obviously into a 4 day work week. And I'm
No,
not sure that what I do would be considered a 4 day work week anyway yet, but I'm working on it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because I see the value in working less. And I mean working fewer days and getting more work done, right? Like,
yeah,
but also or getting the equal amount of work done in 4 days that you can try to stretch into 7, right?
yeah,
Like but again, some things can't be helped, right? Some emergencies come up
for sure, yeah,
and so but the idea is in each person's life, like in my life, I just have to take the opportunities when they come, right?
totally,
Like
yeah,
there's nothing else I can do
yeah,
anymore,
absolutely,
right? Any more
absolutely,
than you can do that in your own life. You just have to kind of like grab at it when you get a chance, you know.
Well, exactly. And I mean, it's funny because even through the move and stuff, it was very chaotic. And at one point when we were going back to Calgary every weekend, we're literally like camping in our house because there's no furniture left, there's
Yeah.
nothing, but we're still doing work. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, like,
I always
but
pictured you having tents up in there.
but it was like it wasn't fun. It was very stressful, and we're kind of through that now. But it's like, but getting through that, what it was like, I just go sit out in the backyard on the back step and just like stare at the stars and whatever. And
Mhm.
you just take those moments to just kind of breathe and stare at the stars and just kind of calm down from the stress and the anxiety. And it
Yeah.
was funny because like every time I do it, it's noticeably a different out. Like I go in and I notice how different I feel
Mhm.
about the stress now or whatever, right? Like, so it actually is amazing how effective it is. Now that's just the
Yeah.
thing that I did, but
Mhm.
it was like you said, you got to find those moments, and it was like, well, I got 20 minutes that we're just kind of hanging out watching
Mhm.
TikTok, so I'm gonna go hang out outside and just let's have like some quiet.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really was truly amazing. Like just
It's nice, isn't it? Just a
yeah,
20-minute break, man. You give
yeah.
yourself 20 minutes and you feel a little bit more refreshed, eh?
Yeah, and like I always found with people in offices and stuff, like everybody wants to work through their lunch or take, and I'm like,
Fuck, that is
nah,
crazy that I used to do that, man. That is
I know, me
nuts.
too. And now I'm like, the last few years, I was like, no, I'm just gonna close my door
Yeah, man.
and like eat my lunch and just chill for an hour.
Yeah.
Actually, the one place I was working at, I had no window in, like, all the offices had windows beside the doors except mine. So I
Oh,
had
yeah.
closed my door and I just kicked back for a nap for half an hour every day because everybody thought if your door was closed, you're in a meeting.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's
so
right.
that's what I did every day. But it was
Yeah.
honestly, it was fantastic though, because you kind of wake up and I don't know, it just made the whole day a lot fucking easier.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
See, we should bring in napping every day. We should have nap hour every day. You have your lunch
Dude,
hour, and then
now
you
you're
have an
speaking
hour
my
of napping.
language. Yeah.
Yeah, see?
Now you're speaking my language. Because I would like when I lived in Italy, man, I love that about the Italians. They take like a nap every afternoon, man.
I know.
Right?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard in
It's
other countries they do it as well, and I'm
yeah,
like,
of course. It's
this is great.
wise. Yeah. I think it's wisdom. And I think it's a terrible thing not to listen to that kind of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
When
Well,
was
I
the
mean,
last time?
it is about finding just like recharging. Like
Mhm.
you're not an energy battery. Like you can't just keep going and going and going all day.
Well, eventually you got to get plugged in, right? To get
Yeah.
like, yeah, to give yourself that comeback time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny because every time you do it, you feel great, but you still don't do it enough, right?
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like it's like meditating. I feel great, but I still don't do it enough. Like
No.
I could still do it way more, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, no, it is interesting. And I don't know. I think I don't know why that came up this week. I'm trying to think of why I was talking to somebody about that, but um yeah, anyway, it was curious. And I know there's a lot of different programs out there, like there's not just
mm,
AA and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I don't know what they offer for suggestions for people, but I mean,
Well,
um
they have a website you can visit, right? It's calgaryaa.org, I think.
oh, okay.
But wherever they happen to be, if they go to their, probably type in your city
Yeah, that's true.
aa.org
Yeah.
or whatever, wherever you, or whatever that translates to where you might happen to live,
Yeah.
you'll be able to find it, I think.
Yeah,
But it again depends on your access to the internet and all that kind of stuff.
for sure. Yeah.
But well, I guess if you don't have access to the internet, you're not listening to us, so it doesn't really
Probably
matter.
not, no.
But however, if you are on an island and you're playing with a volleyball and you've drawn a face on it, and you do happen to get like
Stay there. It's probably better there.
yeah, just hang out where you are. I don't know how you're listening to this right now.
We're in a bit of a
Probably,
dumpster fire right now.
yeah, yeah. The Western world is a dumpster fire. The I think we're gonna be okay, but it might take some time, right? Like,
Dude, I the vote yesterday, right? I'm in
mhm.
Lethbridge now. I'm not in Calgary. And
Oh yeah,
I sorry, I just have to get, I know this is totally unrelated, but
no man, it's
I
okay, dude.
it was the most weird voting experience I've ever had in my life.
Was it?
This concept of like secret ballots, nope.
Yeah.
Like you can see everybody's ballots. Everybody was standing in line holding their ballots. I actually
Yeah.
watched a guy because you had to like go in this line to get your ballot to go vote, then go in this line to take your ballot
Yeah.
up, and they have machines that you feed it through.
Mhm.
And I was like, and I watched a guy get into the machine line and just do the voting right there in line.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is ridiculous.
I know. It's pretty funny. I think they wanted to make sure that they could see enough ballots so they could make sure Farkas didn't get voted in. I
Oh,
saw one
man.
of his pictures today on the side of the road, dude, and I just started laughing. I'm like, Farkas, that reminds me of a movie. And there was a line in a movie, and it was like the guy had Tourette's and he would say fuck ass. And it sounded kind of like Farkas. and,
Oh my
and so
God.
every time I see
Yeah.
his face on the side of the road, I think fuck ass.
I think
There's
I've
nothing
even
he did.
seen that movie.
I
just
mean,
can't
there was
think
no
of it.
chance I was voting for that guy, but
No.
but and because of that, because he made me laugh too much. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I was actually kind of surprised by some of the outcomes. Not to get on to politics and elections,
Yeah.
but anyways, I was.
It's all good, man.
So congrats
all
to everybody who won, I guess.
Yeah, congrats, you guys. We all voted. Hopefully, everybody got out there and voted if they could, and if they decided they wanted to vote, considering most elections appear to be dumpster fires these days, where you're just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what, man, I'm just going to throw this in that direction and hope it sticks on someone who's not a farkass.
Well, here in Lethbridge, we had a whopping like 32% voter turnout. So,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, yeah, we
Nice.
did really good, and that was up. I
Wait, did
think,
you say
from the last
42?
32?
Oh, okay, 32.
Yeah,
Okay,
32% of eligible voters voted. Yeah.
right on.
I
So-
honestly, half the people that I talked to were like today were like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that was even happening yesterday."
So, so would this be an indication that the old rock the vote campaign didn't work?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
32%. I have to
Right?
look at, what was it in Calgary? Did you see?
It's probably in the 60s, like high
Yeah.
60s or something.
Yeah.
but-
Oh man, my since we're on a little bit of a subject interlude here, well, actually it's not an interlude, because this is something that's impacted my life and helped me probably stay sober and keep me coming back every day.
Yeah.
Is Floyd.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He has been
Definitely.
such a gift to me, but I had to take him in to get his haircut today.
Oh no.
So, and he has to get sedated, right? Because he's
Yeah,
such
yeah.
an a-hole. Like he's
Oh,
so
so he's a little dopey now.
oh yeah, he was just sitting here with his back to me because he's mad at me, right? So
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got he's sitting within like in my eye line with his back to me, so he knows that I know he's upset with me, and it's pretty cute. But I realized he was staring at the couch for like literally 20 minutes the whole time we've been talking. So he hadn't moved. He hadn't moved till I just said his name, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but man, he changed a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like I'd have to do some planning if I was going to take my life, right? Like I'd have to because I wouldn't want to leave him alone, right? Like that would suck, because he needs somebody around, right? Like somebody good around who's going to just be there and let him be his awful self when he is, right? Kind of like what I hope people do for me when I have to, when they're stuck hanging around
True.
with me. I kind of hope the same.
It
So
is
yes.
amazing how much of an impact animals have on
Yeah.
anybody, right? Like,
Yeah, I agree, man. I recommend it if you can do it. Like,
yeah,
and if you can't like afford to do it, like you can foster and they'll pay
Yeah.
for the food and stuff, right? Like some
or
most of the
even volunteer
organizations.
for them, like a couple of shifts
Yeah.
a week at the SPCA or something. Like,
Yep. I just saw
Totally.
the Positive Match place that you and I
Yeah,
went
yeah.
to, and we did that podcast. They're advertising they're looking for in-shelter volunteers.
oh wow,
So like if you or I thought about it, I'm still thinking about it. Because I wouldn't mind being in there to talk to the animals and hang out with the animals,
Yeah, I mean,
especially the
that's
ones that
pretty
are going to
awesome.
get put down, right? Like I'd like
Mhm.
to be there for those
Yeah, yeah.
cats and dogs, because just to give them little smooches before they go so that
Oh,
they
for
can be
sure. Yeah.
terrified when you're smooshing their cheeks and then they
Who's
as
this
they're
stranger?
that's right, who's this weird looking stranger and why is he like squishing my cheeks
I think
and
it's
saying smooshy smooshy smooshy.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, if they could only talk.
I know, man. If they only talked, they would tell us off for sure.
Yeah, I
Cats
think so.
would.
Yeah.
Floyd would for sure. He'd be like, dude, I hate you.
It's a love hate though.
Yeah,
It's a love hate.
totally is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of it, man. I think what's always worked for me was sticking to my guns with stuff, right? Like which means not being resistant to outside ideas, but sticking to my guns when I know that there's something I shouldn't be doing, right?
Mhm.
Like and when I know that there's something I could be doing, I tend to try to do it, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Like
whatever
work
it
out
is.
instead of go
Yep.
drink or go for
Yeah,
a walk
precisely.
instead of do that. Or yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I like the way you say it because sometimes it has to be purposeful, right? Like it
Yeah.
has to be we have to make this purposeful diversion, you know,
Yeah.
but it has to be sustainable for us and it also has to work for us. So like
Yeah.
there might be things like, you know, I was telling you that I tried hot yoga last week, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Dude, I loved it. Like, and I can't
Yeah.
wait to go again. Like, that'll be something that I incorporate every so often into my routine. I'm not gonna like, I'm not saying I'm gonna go crazy with it because I don't usually go crazy with stuff anymore because I
Yeah.
like to take it slow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had to because of my back. Really, I just go
Yeah.
slow with stuff, right? But my exercise, my workouts are getting um, pretty good. I got a new heavy kettlebell at home, and
Nice.
like so, and because we're talking about what do we do for to cope, that's one of the things I do. Like
Mhm.
I love to lift, right?
Yeah.
Like I go to the gym for cardio and some weights, of course, but I actually just love lifting at home. It's kind of nice, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
just take my time, listen
Yeah.
to music. You know, I'm not feeling rushed. I'm not in the way. It's kind of nice. So,
Absolutely. Well, it's way more convenient. You don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to,
mhm,
get all your shit, go to the car, get in the,
yeah.
like especially like traffic and stuff. I mean, but I think I actually thought of something while you were talking about hot yoga
Mhm,
was I think that's a big key to it is probably doing a lot of that kind of stuff in between the moments that
mhm,
maybe of those high stress moments so
yeah.
that when you're coming up to it again,
Mhm,
you've you've done hot yoga or maybe you found out that you like listening to this kind of music or maybe this
mhm,
really whatever it is, right?
mhm.
Float pods, whatever, like, but you
Yeah.
start
Oh
to do
yeah.
those things in between and it kind of again it builds that new history of like, oh, this is how we're coping with life now, we're
Mhm.
doing these things instead, you
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
So I would think that would help. I don't know.
Oh, I think it helps immensely, man, to
Yeah.
have to build an alternate routine for your life, right?
Yeah.
And I know like people, and I hear it all the time, and sometimes I think the same thing, I think, but maybe not so much these days about discipline, right? Like, because discipline comes across to people as a dirty word, right? And
Yeah, it
don't get
feels
me
like drill
wrong,
sergeant,
yeah,
or full
there's
metal jacket kind of thing.
that's right. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some really nice, naughty kind of bad when it comes to it, but not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
But really,
Yeah.
it's discipline is a good thing, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're either going to live a disciplined, unhealthy life, which means you make decisions like I make decisions every day, which
Mhm.
are either going to be healthier or not as healthy, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I just need to be aware of that and be aware and honest about whether it's healthy or not, right? Whether it's a
Yeah.
good idea or not.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't want to, like, if I want to lose weight, I probably need to do different things. If I want to
For
gain
sure.
weight, I'd have to do other things, right? Like if I
Yeah.
wanted to gain whatever, we have to be purposeful. And
Yep.
so, like you and I talk about this all the time. I want a peaceful life, man. Like
Totally.
I want to have the most peaceful life that I can have in my skin today,
Yeah.
and a lot of that has to do with this is probably another thing that I adopted from people around me when I came into sobriety, but was minding my own business.
Mm.
Like that's
Oh
a
yeah.
discipline as well, right?
Oh
Like,
yes.
and I didn't know that I had that discipline, but I really do appreciate that I do have it. Like
For sure. Yeah.
I have been taught by some pretty good people in minding their business,
Yeah.
and I watch everyone, man. I am a watching just so that I can like make sure that I mind my business,
Yeah.
looking, watching boundaries and making sure that I am not trampling on other people's feelings, and that stuff's important for me to try, because I believe it's important for me to try to be more like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
More accepting, um less resistant, right?
Yeah.
For whatever it might be that I'm resisting. If I
Yeah.
think about
Absolutely.
it, like a comparison would be how much some people might have resisted when cannabis became legal,
Yep.
right? And it's interesting because even 3 years later, I still kind of hear it talked about in the rooms, like it's still a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because some people in the rooms are still struggling with their own idea of what sobriety means,
Oh yeah. For
or
sure.
maybe just struggling to stay sober, right?
Mhm.
So of course, any topic about a chemical substance would be a bad topic for them, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
however, being that we can go to any meetings we want, we get to, and when we're in those meetings, it's the same thing. It's, I learned in those places to mind my business, right?
Yeah.
So when people might be saying stuff that could be contrary to what I think is true, I mind my business. It's not for
Yeah.
me to correct anybody, or um, because that's one of the things that was given to me, and I think it was a gift. The gift
Yeah.
of, Dave, you do not have control over other people. You don't need to
Yeah.
know what they're doing, and you don't need to have an opinion about what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? Because frankly, your opinion of me is none of my business, just like mine's none of yours.
Well, that's
Right?
just it. And everything, there's a million ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
of
like,
course there is.
so yours may work, but it's not the only one, and it doesn't
Mm-mm.
have to be. I
No.
remember taking, like, when we were going to be parents, you go to the parenting classes and you take these things. But it was funny. One of the things I do remember from those classes was they were talking about parents, and they were like, um, if dad does things this way and mom does them this way, one is not wrong or more right than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did the thing get accomplished? Then it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when they're talking about like how you change diapers or how you play with the kid or how
Mm-hmm.
you do interact or something. It's like, but it unless it's like absolutely horrible, but like if it's just a different way, but they achieve the same results, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really matter. You know what I mean? Like as long as it's
Yeah.
positive for both, like it's not just, negative or something, but that's the thing. There's no one right way to do just about anything. So I
Yeah.
always find I apply that kind of thing when I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at other people, or I feel like I'm getting
Yeah.
all righteous or something. I'm just like, yeah, there's other ways to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and who says my way is right?
And frankly, who says anybody needs to do anything anyway, right?
Yeah,
Besides, like, I don't even know what someone needs to be doing. So like
exactly.
at what point in my brain should I start to allow it to start pretending to know what someone else should or shouldn't be doing?
Well, and how much easier would things be if that's all it took is one person to go through it and go, oh, this is how you deal with this.
You
Here,
guys could do it
everybody.
just like that. Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
hand it on, you be like, oh, okay. I won't
Don't,
have
I
any
mean, and
problems.
totally. And don't get me wrong, bro. I would love that. Right.
Wouldn't
Like
that be
that.
awesome?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. It would be it would be a wonderful world if it was that simple.
Right.
Right.
But we all have that uniqueness, which makes every
Yeah.
situation unique, right? Good for us.
Well, it is good for
It
us. And
is.
since when was it supposed to be easy? Right?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
it was never supposed to be easy.
No.
Like I wanted it easier when I was younger, so
Yep.
I drank to avoid the difficulty, right?
For sure.
Like, but what I was also missing was obviously the ingredients of a grown-up because there's times where I feel like I'm lacking that ingredient for
Yeah,
sure.
I still feel that way. Yeah.
100%, man. Like there's just for sure I have a lot of growing up to do, right? And
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. I
For sure.
spent a good portion of my life trying not to grow up. And by grow up, I just mean face reality, right? That's
Yeah.
all I really mean is just accept reality and work within it, right? In
Yeah.
whatever capacity I can. And I know there's a lot of people that struggle because they can't make those kinds of choices, right?
Yeah.
There's circumstances that cut them off from that
Yeah.
freedom, right? From that kind of freedom. So I don't, I try not to take it for granted. Another thing that I try to practice, man, is the being grateful.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have to really try anymore to practice it because I feel so damn grateful, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's no way I deserve what I have. There's no
Yeah.
way I deserve like where I am, but I'm certainly trying to enjoy it and make the most of it, right? Like
Yeah.
make the most of the time that I have on this planet.
Yeah.
And
Well,
now my
I find with great gratitude, like I find when you truly feel gratitude, it's like I don't know, it just changes kind of how you perceive things. You know what I mean?
changes
Like,
everything, man. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it changes
Um,
everything, and I love the fact that it puts a sparkle on things, right? Like
yes.
it's like putting a sparkle on your life, man. Like
Yeah.
you want to feel like you're having a good life. Embrace all the stuff that is
Yeah.
like that you can be grateful for,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. But I mean, again, man, there are some folks that are in some dire situations, man, and I I have a hard time being like, oh yeah, let's just be grateful for what you got,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I'm really trying not to ignore the fact that there are people within circumstances where that would be fucking impossible, right?
Well,
Or
and I think
damn near impossible.
absolutely, and I think the key is realizing that in the situation, there's times where you can be grateful later,
Yeah,
but you have to get through whatever it is that is.
that's right.
So, I mean, and again, we're just talking about things that have worked,
Mhm.
and have
And
helped.
this is
And
just one thing, right? Like
exactly, yeah,
I'm not trying to make it sound like any one thing on its own is better than the other because frankly, if we're talking about going to meetings and talking to, which is obviously are very important when I
yeah,
go through and honestly, whenever I've gone through hard stuff in the last 17 plus years or 17 years couple months,
yeah,
I do the similar things, right? And there's meditation, prayer, exercise, talk to other alcoholics, go to meetings,
mm. That well,
and
yeah,
do the work. So by
yeah,
doing the work, it means doing the writing. I went back into another step 4 and 5.
mm,
And I chose to do that because I needed to. There's stuff that just persists in my life, right? Like
yeah.
there are things that make my life harder because they're still around.
Well, and it's a
And
very
so
healthy way to deal with it, right?
it becomes the only real way that I know to deal with it, right?
Yeah,
Is because the other way didn't work for me, which was putting my head under a pillow, right? And just
yeah,
going, oh, this pillow of alcohol is wonderful. Like it was an illusion. And every bit of success, like in terms of inner growth, was illusory, right?
yeah,
Like it just wasn't real.
yeah, yeah.
It always
You
seemed to slip away anyway.
you mentioned earlier you were talking about making your life more peaceful,
Mhm.
and I think I wanted to touch on that because I think a lot of people get it in their head when you talk about peaceful. It's like, oh, you're going to become some Buddhist monk and go live in the hills and not be part of civilization, right?
Yeah,
But I think the
yeah.
reality is peaceful in life doesn't mean that you're not, going to the grocery store, picking up the dog, or
Mm.
getting the cat to the groomers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You're still doing life.
Yep.
And you're still plugged into life and you're still
Yep.
interacting with people. You're still doing your job, but
Yep.
but you can be at peace while you're doing those things.
More and more at peace with the day-to-day
Yeah.
stuff, right? And
Yeah.
I remember reading something years ago and I can't remember what it was. It might have been it was probably from some Buddhist book, but it was just about doing that purposeful, right? Like being
Yeah.
mindful in the everyday. And
Yeah.
because that's where the sacred is, right? Is
Yeah.
in the everyday. And for most of us, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just going to church or being able to go to the mountains and find your pray place or whatever, but it's in the day to day, right?
Yeah.
Like what are you do? What am I doing in my life? Am I doing stuff in my life that's going to help me appreciate my life? Or is it going to be,
Yeah.
is it stuff that I'm doing that's going to help make me more afraid of my life?
Yeah.
Right. Which I can do. And I can choose to do that stuff like everybody else can, right?
Yeah.
And have to be mindful to say, no, I need to do some work on me again, because I see where I went incredibly off,
Yeah.
off the path, right? Like I can
Yeah.
see in hindsight, I can see where I went off the path with all these different things, whatever it was that I was coming out of, whether it was hurting my back, like breaking my back, it was just
Yeah.
a fucking nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But because I had already learned some skills, thankfully, from being fired, from, going through that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was okay. I was calloused enough now. Like I was, and thankfully, and I talk about this with my friend Jess all the time, because we both went through lots of hard stuff with our backs,
Mm.
and it was just hard. There was times where, when her and I would talk, I would say, like, if it gets much worse, I don't know if I could make it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm going to be able to do it. Right. Like, and
Yeah.
having her around, having her to talk to, like, about that stuff, was huge for me. Right.
Totally.
Like to be able to be honest with someone who didn't just like call 911 right away,
Yeah.
because she understood that I was serious. I was close, like I was in
Mhm.
agony, I was suffering, but she also knew that, I wasn't there yet, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just, it's nice. We're talking earlier about having, a good fellowship, good peer support,
Yeah.
right? Good support. And yeah, so many of my friends at different,
Mhm.
um, times just came through in ways I didn't know friends could come through. Right.
Yeah.
And hopefully from their existence, basically, I've tried to put together how to be a friend. Right. Like
Yeah.
from how other people have treated me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't instinctively know.
I 100% agreement. Like, not, I don't agree that you don't know. That
Yeah.
sounded really weird.
Thanks a
You don't
lot,
know how to be a
asshole.
good friend, Dave.
I don't. And now you're just telling the truth. You just
But
tell it
no,
like it is.
I do think, like, I feel the same way. Like, I feel like I'm learning, from the people in my life,
Mhm.
how to be a better friend, a better, husband, better father. Like, I feel like I'm totally unequipped for all of these roles.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like, it's just weird because I feel like I think I've developed relationships with people over the last few years that are, it's like, then the universe is like, you need someone to help you learn this. So
Mhm.
there you go. There's a friend. And they're
Yep.
going to teach you how to be this kind of person. And really, I feel like, it's really for me about understanding what, like, respect and kindness and what that friendship really means.
Mhm.
Like, where
Yeah.
they can call you in a time of need, you can call them, and it's, there's no
Mhm.
judgment and things like that. Like, it's, for a lack of a better word, you find that safe place, right?
Oh,
Where,
it's 100%. That's probably the best way to describe it, man.
I know it just gets, so
Yeah.
today that seems like a negative word, but it really is a positive, because, like, when you feel comfortable
Yeah.
talking, like, it's an amazing feeling.
Well, and if you're going to talk in the world that I live in, like, and this doesn't, I know this doesn't apply to everyone's existence,
Yeah,
because not everyone lives and works in the world that I live and work in.
for sure.
And I wouldn't expect them to feel the same way about it as me, right?
Yeah,
Like any more than they would expect me to feel the same way about whatever it is they do, right?
for sure.
Like,
Yeah.
and if they do expect me to feel the same way as them, well, too bad, because it's just not how my brain works, right?
No, no.
I will absolutely be excited about your being excited,
Yeah, yeah,
100%, because I get down like that when
yeah.
someone is excited about something good in their life, man. It like gives me joy, like,
Right? Yeah,
to watch them excited, right?
yeah,
Like one of the other things that I'm glad we're talking about this tonight, man, because
yeah, yeah.
I've been thinking about it like quite a lot, because I've been going back to, one of my old meetings, the G block, more often.
Mhm.
And every time I go back, I feel I just feel better and better,
Oh,
right? Like
nice.
I feel better and better about my life because I remember, and it's not about what other people are going through, but
Mhm.
it's about listening to people who are new and
Mhm.
hearing and being reminded of how badass we are. Like
Yeah.
literally sitting in there listening to people who have come through, god damn man, would have killed most of us, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and hard shit, man, shit harder than anything I've ever been through, but like they're still there and they're still kicking ass, right? And then it
Yeah.
reminds me that when I came in, I had to do the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Like that it wasn't easy.
No.
And that's hard for me to remember, right? Like,
Yeah.
so anyway, I forget that by tomorrow. So I try to go as often as I can when things are harder, right?
Yeah.
And but what ends up happening is it just happens to stay as long as I need
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Right? Because meetings are always there.
Yeah.
And they have always been there for me. And so, we talk about a lot of stuff on in the podcast,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure lots of people might even think that I'm not a huge fan of the 12 step rooms, but I am, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just that I know that I have to be careful about my enthusiasm,
For sure.
um, because it's not for everybody,
It is,
right?
and like, again, not
Yeah.
everything works for everyone.
Yeah. And
So
I want to be conscious and mindful of that because
for sure.
I think that that helps me be a better Dave, right?
Mhm.
When it's like it helps you be a better Darcy, right? Like
Absolutely.
when I'm more open to outside ideas, thoughts, whatever they are, I'm a way better Dave, way better,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm
Yeah.
not just putting my shit on you.
It's funny. I found that through COVID too. Like, yeah, I was, you watch a lot of social media videos and stuff, but I watched a few things. Can't even be specific, but there was a few things where I remember like it kind of challenged my preconceived ideas
About
or
what?
my just general things. Nothing even major. Like I honestly, I just remember the experience of like having to rethink kind of some of my just some things, and I was like,
Mhm.
hmm. It's interesting that once you start opening your mind to like, well, there, I'm not saying I agree with that, but it's
Mhm.
possible. I can see that.
Yeah.
Um, how it's like a snowball effect.
If you can see the possible, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
You don't, and between you and me, like we don't have to know how something works to think it might work, right? Like
exactly.
because there's
Yeah,
so many things that I have no idea how they work and they work just fine.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so but it's cool, right? Like you
it
get
is.
to,
Yeah.
once you open that up, it's like more is coming, baby. Like
Oh
more is
yeah.
coming, right?
Yeah.
If you keep your mind open, more is coming.
Yeah.
And it's good. More will be revealed to you.
And you feel better about it though. So then when it does
Mhm.
happen again, you're almost more
Yeah.
open to it, and you're like, oh, this is like, and you just, I don't know, it changes how you perceive things. Like I don't take
Mhm.
on a lot of stress now because of that.
Yep.
Because I just start to like, there's a lot of times where I'll read something in the news and I'll be like, I know that sounds really shitty, but when I read the
Mhm.
article, I can start to think, well, I can see how that person went from here to there
Yeah.
in whatever the story was about, right? Like
Mhm.
I can see how they went wrong or how they did such a good
Mhm.
thing or something like. So it just kind of like, but that's not the way I would have maybe done that or chose to
Mhm.
handle that. And so it's like, but once you can see, like, yeah, but that's how they chose to do it. Like
Well,
that
and
was for
once
them
you,
the answer. So
exactly, and we weren't there, right?
yeah,
Like
like
we weren't there, and our reaction selection list didn't come for us, right?
yeah. And if
You
you can
know.
truly kind of, I mean, you never really truly can, but if you can at least try to put yourself in somebody's shoes and
Mhm.
like maybe, yeah, go try to go back 3 decisions ago and go, okay, what was leading up to this?
Yeah.
Almost inevitably, I end up going, yeah, I can see how you'd end up there,
Mhm.
or I can see that how that would happen, or
Yeah.
but before I just like, what the hell, you know what I mean? Like just
Mhm.
that reactionary, like, nope, it doesn't meet my
Yeah.
approval. So
Well, and what one of the things I noticed when I do that, like
yeah,
when I'm rejecting something like flat out, um, and my brain will sometimes just do it automatically. It'll just be
yes,
like, no, that is too far out. So we're just going to leave that out. But then
yeah,
I have to jimmy it in there, right?
yeah,
Sometimes because I, get a little crowbar and pry it open a little bit
yeah, yeah,
and let that information come in, because it's like the information might be far fetched, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. right?
Yeah.
Like, and what helps me realize that the impossible is very possible, right, is that I don't know very much.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
knowing that I don't know very much, I can leave a lot to be like um, open and possible, right?
Yep.
Is because there's so much, I have so many limitations.
Yeah.
And basically, it's my own limitations that I have put on myself thus far, right? In terms of information,
Yeah.
but I could never know everything, right?
For
So,
sure.
so technically, I can do the best I can at getting information in and letting the machine change, right?
Mhm.
As the information becomes a little bit more solid. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happens over time, right? Like
Yeah,
when
absolutely. And I think it
when you're
makes it easier
practicing.
to deal with things because you're getting used to kind of just rolling with it. Like
100%, man.
those thoughts that I used to think were this is dead set, this is how I
Mhm.
feel about these things, maybe isn't that way anymore.
Yep.
So maybe this other thing is doesn't need to be that harsh. And
Mhm.
I think that's where you start to see that control of like I need to control things
Mhm.
starts to lift when you start to realize like, oh, it's actually kind of easier if I just step back, let it flow, and just roll
Yeah.
with it. And
And
you
you're
know,
absolutely right. And some of those beliefs, they might not change. And that's
no,
okay too, right? And
absolutely. And it's not about changing them. It's just
yeah,
about rolling with the other things that come along.
it's about being open to new ideas and information. That's all,
Yeah.
right? Because you're not going to take it all in and say, yeah, I accept all this. You don't need to do that, right? Like
No.
that, to me, that's not the key to keeping the mind open. The key is just keep putting information in there,
Yeah, and
right?
don't judge it. Just take it
Yeah,
for what it is, and you can
that's
go,
right.
yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. That's fine.
That's right. And you don't have to, right?
But
Like,
that's life. Like we don't, and again, we
yeah.
go back to that. Like if you decide to go this way into sobriety or that way, like, and who the
Mhm.
hell is to judge, right?
Yeah, none of us.
Do you think? I guess one of the last things or whatever is, do you think by focusing on trying not to judge others for stuff like that, like
Mhm.
doing those kinds of things, do you think that reflects onto yourself where you start to realize how much you judge yourself?
Well, I have noticed that's happened for me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I noticed that because I'm more of a, I had to learn how to love myself through loving people.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't, like, I just hadn't, I haven't yet been able to go at it simply by trying to say, Dave, love yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
when someone says you have to love yourself, I'm like, yeah, that's great, thanks. Because for me, and this again, this goes to show you that there's different ways for different people, right? Like
For sure.
when I hear that, I think, yeah, I tried. Good luck. Like I
Mhm.
had to love, I really had to learn how to love others and listen to them
Yeah.
and listen to people who I might not agree with, who I might think are insane for
Yeah.
any number of reasons. They might think the same about me. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the point, is that I don't know who's insane and who's not, but I
Yeah.
will absolutely, if I let my brain go off on that tangent, I'll be picking people apart,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Just like now, the reason I do it on other people is because I do it to myself, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that I'm so incredibly hard on myself that eventually it goes towards others too. And
Mhm.
so, what I've tried to do to circumvent that, allow for time to change that, whatever you want to call it, is I really just focus on not judging people.
Yeah.
And when I do that, like you said, it makes it a lot easier for me to be kinder to myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that I love the fact that there's so many different people, like that we
Yeah.
have so many different backgrounds, that we have so
Yep.
many different ideas. Like I love it. I genuinely love it. And so knowing that, it makes it easier, right? Because I
Totally.
know how I feel when I listen to people, man. And
Yeah.
uh, I know it sounds like I know it sounds like a cliche, I guess, but like that's just how I had to do it. I had
Yeah.
to
Totally.
I had to see the human in other people so that I could start to love the human in myself, because that was one thing I always tried to avoid, was being human, man.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was younger, I would just flat out say, no, I don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, I don't do that. Oh, Dave, like everybody breathes. No, I don't do that. I don't breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are fucking weak. I don't
Yeah.
breathe. You breathe. You're a breather. I'm not a breather. Right? Like just
Yeah.
asinine shit. Obviously, I never told people I didn't breathe. I don't breathe, but
But yeah.
it's that kind of asinine stuff that I would tell myself, right?
Yeah.
Was that you can't do that. That's not okay for you.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I told myself that enough. Now, on the one hand, I told myself that enough that I didn't do certain things
Mhm.
because I had lines in the sand, if you will. Right
Yeah. Yeah.
now, there's obviously the philosophy, and I agree with it to some extent, that it's all about not yet, right? Like if
Mhm.
I kept drinking, I could easily get to those places. And I
Yeah.
agree with that. I agree
Yeah.
with that 100% because I never thought I would do some of the shit I've done, right? Like,
For sure.
um, and so I believe that under the influence of alcohol, I am capable of anything, like
Yeah.
absolutely anything.
Yeah.
I might be just as capable of that without the alcohol, depending on someone's philosophical leaning about that. I might be fully capable of doing anything without alcohol, but I believe alcohol would be the main ingredient and the catalyst for that, right?
Yeah.
For some bad behavior, right?
I always laugh when people say that, like, wow, you would have done that anyway. Like, even
Mhm.
without alcohol, you could have been. Well, I could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
The reason I don't do these things without alcohol is because I have the thing in my brain that goes, that's a bad thing. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And I always found, for me, what alcohol did was shut that thing off and
Yeah.
go, riding on the hood of that car is an awesome idea.
Dude,
So, like,
awesome
I always
idea.
laugh at that, where people are like, well,
Wow.
you're gonna do these things anyway. It's like, yeah, but not to that extent.
No,
Like,
exactly.
like you don't
Exactly.
know how this works. Like,
No.
and anyway, yeah. But
But I hopefully most people now, if they've experienced like consuming alcohol, just consuming it, you
yeah,
don't have to be an alcoholic. You
you
end up
know,
doing some dumb shit, right?
I
Like
mean, that's everybody's like day after stories, right?
yeah.
Like, you, everybody that has had a drink and gotten drunk has regrets.
Mm.
Like, it
Well,
just,
yeah, and here's the thing. The guys like me and maybe yourself when you were partying, like, but guys like me, we're doing it so often that
yeah,
the events occur more often, right? Like that's
completely, yeah,
it's just the law of averages, right? If I drink every
yeah,
day for 10 years, chances are I'm going to experience some shit in that 10
totally,
years,
yeah,
right? Like, and it's not going to be very good shit after
no,
a while.
no,
Um, so yeah, there's a difference for sure
yeah,
in consumption. Um, but the big difference is, and the reason the difference in consumption is so big is because alcohol, like they've done studies on part of this now, where they, I believe it's a fact. I could be wrong on this, so look it up if you're curious. Um, but it's about the enzymes. We metabolize alcohol differently, like
oh
literally
wow,
differently. Now, this again, this could be old information that I'm passing on here, so I'm not passing it on as fact.
hmm
But I've heard this consistently as well, still around,
yeah,
that we have a different way of metabolizing alcohol, the
yeah,
sugars in it, right?
yeah, yeah,
And to me, that makes sense. And the reason I
yeah,
say it makes sense is because alcohol affects me vastly differently than it affects anyone else that I know, like outside
yeah,
of the alcoholics, right?
yeah, yeah.
But like it affects me so dramatically different than it affects
Oh
you,
yeah, yeah,
right? Dramatically different than it affects Dominic. Like, um, and people who can consume alcohol without the fear of like wanting to go and do heroin after, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but that's just not how my brain or my body metabolizes it.
yeah.
When I get the alcohol in me, I start thinking about the heroin right away,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I start thinking about it like, wouldn't that be something?
The
um,
next good idea is,
right. And the next good idea is, and that's exactly it, Darcy, then so
yeah,
on and so on. Now,
yeah,
don't get me wrong, I thought about the heroin and did the morphine, right?
yeah,
But it was eventually, this is why I say the not yets, is because eventually I would have gone the route, or maybe I will go the route if should I go back to it. I
yeah.
would go the route of eventually intravenous, I'm sure, right?
Well, yeah,
And
because
because,
you're gonna need more, right?
well, you want that feeling, right, to
Yeah,
get better, and the only way to do that is to do more,
yeah,
right, and different. And
yeah,
um so thankfully I did not get to that point in my consumption,
yeah,
right? But I know I won't need much help if I drink again, right?
yeah,
Like
for sure.
there's a, because I remember the governor just coming off as soon as I add alcohol. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, man, oh, everything's running through my brain. I wouldn't even talk about it to my friends and stuff because it's just fucking insane. Right.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's just, I remember oftentimes I would drink more so that I would shut my mouth. Right.
Oh,
Like,
geez. Yeah.
because I wouldn't want to talk about what was going on in my head. And that was, thinking back about that is pretty scary, right? Like it
Yeah.
gives me enough of a shot in the arm to, I guess, some days to just keep on the path, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of retrospective fear
Yeah.
or
Well, and
reality.
there's, yeah, the element of being afraid of what is real. I can get behind that,
Well, and I
right?
think when you get so close to knowing like how bad that is for you,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a real different perspective than a lot of us have. And I think there's a huge value in that for helping you stay sober as well. And it's not like a fear thing, it's just understanding that path in a way
I,
that I don't,
I know the
because you went
reality for
further
me,
down.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you got real close to that point where it was too much.
I got
Right.
closer than I ever wanted to get to that point.
Right.
I'll
And you
tell you.
certainly got
Yeah.
closer than I did. I got to a point where I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it
Mm.
anymore. Whereas you pushed it.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Fancy Pants, quitting when it's uncomfortable. How
Right.
dare you?
So you had to make it horrible, but you got closer. And
You quitter.
I know such an underachiever.
I'm so glad you did, man. I'm so glad you quit.
But I think that's
Yeah.
a perspective, and I don't mean it to sound like a fear-based way of staying sober or anything, but just
No.
understanding that to a whole new level.
Mhm.
It's like,
Well,
I can read about childbirth, but I'll never
mhm.
really understand it. So I can read about sobriety and recovery, but I don't read. I really won't understand it at the level you will because you've been further down the path. You know what I
Well,
mean?
but there's like there's just a different kind of understanding. That's all it is, man.
And that's
It's
it.
yeah, it's a different kind, but you have a different kind of understanding for a lot of things too, right?
For
Like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's and I say that because the ego just wants to be like, oh yeah, just absorb that, just love that, rub that into your temple, Dave. Oh my God, it feels so good. So it's kind of like a way to keep it out of my ego, right? Is
Yeah.
And it's true as well, right? Like everybody has things that are difficult for them,
Yeah.
right? And that make life more difficult. And some of them are self-directed things, and some of them aren't, right?
For sure.
And some of the things, like, just to go back to our conversation about judging, some of the things that I witness of people, if I don't give them the benefit of the doubt, then I can easily start judging in my head. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But why wouldn't I give them the benefit of the doubt? Because when I think about, right, like, think about this, Darcy. When are you the most angry in traffic? Is it when your life is really good?
Yeah, not often. No, it's when you're having a shit time.
Yeah, maybe you're having a shit day for whatever reason. Like, and the truth is, I have those shit days just like you do, just like anyone else out there, right? And sometimes I don't do the right things on those shit days.
And it could be more than days. It could be months.
100%.
You just be having a really shitty fucking divorce that goes on for 3 years or whatever.
Fucking A, dude.
So I agree with you. Like, every time that I stop and I try to think about that other person and their day and what might lead them to scream at that McDonald's kid that's 14.
Well,
I think,
yeah, man.
I think that's one thing I learned from you was, like, just sitting back and going, it's not right, but let's try to understand this person rather than just judge them and call them names.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this a lot, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think it's because it's important to talk about.
Yeah,
because honestly, Darcy, like, a big portion of the work that I do, like, day to day, is a result of people being judged.
Yeah,
like, to be honest, like, whether it's judged emotionally, psychologically, physically, whatever the case may be, it's a lot of people, whether it be themselves judging themselves, like that's a big one. Just like for myself, it is a hard one to overcome. And we just need more. I know there's a lot of talk about, like, the frou stuff. Like we just need more love and kumbaya
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
that stuff.
Sit in circles and hug and
And you know, I get why it sounds like it sounds a little like far-fetched, right? Because
yeah.
of this, the actual state of the world
Yes.
doesn't reflect that,
Yeah.
right? But the actual state of parts of the world do reflect that, right?
Yeah.
Like, or there, it is evident that there are people trying to achieve that, right?
Mhm.
That kind of peacefulness that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. Like there's no cave to go hide in, right?
No.
To go, not for me. And if you can,
No.
that's, if you can do it, great. Like honestly, if you can live in a cave for the rest of your life and just like hide out from mankind, I commend you, right? Because
Yeah.
it takes a lot of courage to do that. And also good luck. Like don't get eaten by a bear.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. But like most of us, we have to work, we have to live with family or friends,
Yeah.
we have to engage in the community and stuff like that. And that's trying to do that as peacefully as possible. It's just all I want to do. Right.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and so I have to make choices for that, man.
Yeah.
I have to make choices when I'm driving to not give in to that anger. Right.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I do give into it, and it happens sometimes before I can even like stop my mouth from moving. Right. Like,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
but when I can get it to go a different direction in my brain, away from like just
Lashing out.
lashing out and reveling in the disgust that I have for myself at lashing out.
Yeah.
Like, because the one thing just makes another thing, which then makes
Oh, yeah.
it worse, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I mean by peacefulness, really. If I
Yeah.
don't, it's simply about not going down that path, right?
Yeah.
When I can stop it. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and knowing that I can get off the train if I've already left the station.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At any time you can bail out, dude. You can get off the ride.
Exactly.
But that's a
Yeah.
hard one to remember, hey, when you're
Oh, yeah.
going down that slope. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I can get off the ride, but it's fun right now, man.
Oh, I
It's
know.
like, you know, you're going fast, you're gonna get hurt. Someone's gonna get hurt for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when Dave starts going fast, things get out of control, man. Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome, man. And you know, I hope that helps anybody. I don't know. Did you have anything else you want to
I
add
hope
to
so
the
too, man.
conversation, man?
No, you know what, man? I just yeah, I appreciate you, buddy. And
Yeah, me too.
appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I just appreciate, and I appreciate we can do this still, right? Like,
Absolutely.
it's important, I think, and I'm looking forward to you coming back into town, though, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So we can hang out and maybe even talk to somebody. You know, I'm going to actually try to line up a guest for next week.
Sweet.
Yeah, and we'll make it a surprise because obviously I haven't confirmed anything with anyone yet. So,
All right.
so you
Sounds
might,
good.
Darcy, you might just be stuck with me, man, another week.
Yeah,
But
that's all
I'm
right.
going to try to get somebody on for next Tuesday. Yeah, we'll go
Either
from
way,
there,
I'm
brother.
good. But yeah,
Cool, man.
thanks for the conversation, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother.